the Trump administration changing the rules again, creating a new obstacle for some members of the military who risk their lives to serve the United States. Now, it may be harder for some of their children to become U.S. citizens. It's part of a pattern by this administration to crack down on legal immigrants, never mind illegal immigration. Just yesterday, 2 officials confirmed to CNN President Trump said he was willing to pardon any aides who might break the law trying to finish construction of his border wall. He ordered the raids on nearly 700 undocumented workers in Mississippi. The roundups left children crying, wondering what happened to their parents. CNN's Alex Marquardt breaks down the latest rule on legal immigrants serving America overseas.
The new policy is being met with confusion, fear, and anger as it takes aim at new and non-U.S. citizens who are serving the United States overseas.
So we have service members at work today who didn't sleep well last night because they're worried about their families. They're worried about the citizenship of their own kids as they're supposed to be doing their jobs to protect the rest of us.
The policy is complicated. At its core, it takes away a residency exception made for some people serving the U.S. only because they're overseas. The kids of natural-born citizens or those who have spent longer than 5 years in the U.S. won't be affected. Those who are impacted fall into 3 main groups. The children born to American parents serving overseas who have lived in the U.S. under 5 years will now need to apply for citizenship. The new children of parents serving the United States who only become citizens after the child is born, they too have to apply. And if U.S. citizen parents serving overseas adopt a foreign child while serving, that child also has to apply.
This has nothing to do with people coming across the border without authorization. This has nothing to do with people who are threats to the United States. This is a specific policy to keep certain children of active duty military members from being U.S. citizens.
The Pentagon says this will impact around 100 people per year. The Department of Homeland Security argues that it's far lower, around 25. Thousands of immigrants serve in the U.S. military, risking their lives. Troops and their families don't have much of a say over where they're deployed, so the new policy is, in essence, a punishment.
Having served alongside immigrants who felt that patriotic call to serve, it's a total insult to their service.
And Dana, we have to note that this new policy is not making anyone ineligible for citizenship. And the Department of Homeland Security says it's just aligning itself with current State Department policy. But what this does, it does create a headache, a lengthy process of applying for citizenship for these kids with lots of paperwork for their parents who have asked to serve the United States and then are apparently being penalized for doing so. Dana?
Alex, thank you so much for that report. Joining me now is Acting Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Ken Cuccinelli. So these are Americans working for the U.S. government, being sent overseas by the U.S. government to serve the U.S. government. So why are they targeted with this policy?
Well, you use the word targeted, Dana, and I take real offense to that. We have brought ourselves in compliance with the law. And as was noted at the very end of that report, we've made ourselves consistent with the Department of State. So what was going on before was that the USCIS approach to working these children up to be citizens was not consistent with the State Department's or the law. So we were acting illegally. We've brought ourselves into compliance with the law. And so what was happening and what's happening now is you get your documentation from USCIS and you could go to the State Department, bring that child, and they wouldn't give them a passport as a U.S. citizen because they weren't legally qualified as a U.S. citizen. Now, all of that will mesh together correctly. This only applies to about 20 or 25 people a year, and no one should for a moment think this incredibly pro-military president would ever do anything like I just listened to minutes of attacking, oh, this is another attack, it's another attack. This is complying with the law in a way that actually, where there was still paperwork required before, there's paperwork required after,
you're saying
and now it will work better.
Okay, so you're saying it's complying with the law. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But this is what you all released, a half a page, which did link to a longer policy manual, but on it, this is what created the concern and the chaos among military officers.
What created it was the firestorm. No military members went reading the policy
Firestorm
manual.
was created by the confusion in what you all were doing. Fair?
No.
So you think it was clear?
Created. No, I don't think it was clear. I just said it was a policy manual. This is like a reference manual for the career professionals who process this paperwork. And they had paperwork to do before this change takes effect, and they have paperwork to do after. Again, the last comment wasn't accurate.